I don't know what's worse, the biting cold of a Vermont winter or the feeling of being erased from your own family. Maybe it's the photo. That damned photo, hanging right in the middle of my parents' living room like a silent declaration that I never existed. Not ignored, not pushed to the side. Erased. Completely, cleanly, like a wrong word on a perfect essay. I arrived home on Christmas Eve, boots still speckled with snow, coat soaked through. The smell of cinnamon and roast meat floated out from the kitchen like everything was perfect, like everyone was there. And maybe they were. Everyone but me. I had barely stepped into the living room when I saw it, a large, glossy, high-definition photo, oak-framed and neatly hung on the wall opposite the fireplace. My whole family was in it. My mother, Susan, in her favorite red knit dress, lips bright red, eyes gentle like she'd never made a snide remark about my choice to live independently. My father, Harold, with his trademarked awkward smile, the one he used only in photos or while signing insurance contracts. And in the center, catching all the light and focus, was Emily, my sister. In a fitted beige dress, her blonde hair perfectly curled, smiling like she was posing for Harper's Bazaar. And me? Nowhere. Not off to the side, not blurry in the background, not hidden. I had been entirely, surgically removed. So cleanly that if I didn't know better, I'd believe I had never been there. I stood frozen for a few seconds. Not long, just long enough for my stomach to knot. Long enough for me to realize I had become a memory no one wanted to keep. "Mary, you're here?" My mom's voice rang from the kitchen, warm and casual like nothing was wrong. Like I was still part of that frame. Like everything was fine. I took off my coat, hung it on the hook near the door and muttered a dry greeting. Stepping into the house, everything looked the same. Tree lavishly decorated, lights twinkling everywhere, the scent of cinnamon cookies and mulled wine thick in the kitchen. But inside me, something had cracked. Not because of the photo, but because of the silence. No one said anything about it. No one explained, no one apologized, no one even pretended to be surprised. They simply ignored me, like I had never been part of this, like I was a stranger who stumbled into someone else's gathering. Emily appeared, wineglass in hand, air kissed my cheek like I was an old coworker she ran into by accident. "You finally made it," she smiled, that smug half-smile of hers. I nodded, said nothing. I'd screamed into my pillow too many times to waste words again. I drifted through them like a ghost, present but unseen. And that photo? It didn't even hurt anymore. It was just the final confirmation of something I'd long suspected. They had erased me from their lives a long time ago. Dinner began with the clinking of cutlery on porcelain and the faint scent of roasted beef laced with burnt garlic. I sat at the far end of the table, away from the fireplace and the conversation, like even the table knew I didn't belong. My father carved the meat with the seriousness of a boardroom meeting, while my mom busied herself serving salad to Emily. As if Emily didn't have hands. "Your skin looks amazing lately. What serum are you using?" My mom tilted her head. Eyes filled with adoration. "The French one in the gold bottle, Mom. I got it in Soho the other day." Emily smiled, swirling her wine like liquid silk. I chewed the meat like it was a mouthful of sand. Every time Emily spoke, the room seemed to pause to listen. Every laugh, every little "oh wow" and compliment sounded rehearsed. Every time I tried to say something about work, life in Portland, it got cut off by, "Emily, remember that time?" Or, "Oh Emily, where are you off to next?" I sat there, a shadow. No one seemed to remember I graduated with honors, worked full-time in interior design, or had just moved into a new apartment with a balcony full of lavender. Not a single question. Not one, "How have you been?" Then came gift time. My mom pulled a box wrapped in metallic paper from under the tree, bow perfectly tied. "For Emily," she said, voice soft like she was announcing royalty. Emily feigned surprise, tugged at the bow like she was in a Tiffany & Co. commercial, then gasped. "Oh my God! The Omega I loved months ago? Oh my God! You guys remembered? We saw you eyeing it at the mall, my dad chuckled, placing a proud hand on her shoulder, eyes twinkling. Everyone at the table cheered. Emily hugged them both. Mom teared up. I swallowed hard. When it was my turn, my mom gently set a small paper bag in front of me, printed with the logo of a roadside souvenir shop. I opened it. A mug. On it the words, "Someone's favorite daughter." I smirked. The mug looked cheap. The print was off-center. Like they'd grabbed it at a gas station, suddenly remembering they needed something for me too. No one even looked at my reaction. "Ha, cute," Emily said, glancing at the mug before turning back to her new watch. "I thought it was sweet," my mom added, trying too hard to sound innocent. I didn't respond. I'd learned that reacting only made them uncomfortable, or worse, amused. After dinner, my mother got up to clear the table, her eyes flicking toward me with a hint of hesitation. Then, she said, "You can sleep in the living room, we've already set up the sheets. Not your room, not your old room, but the living room. The room that used to be my father's small office, now crammed with a folding bed, pale beige sheets, a tiny table, and a flickering lamp that blinked every time the wind blew." I nodded, keeping my face blank. I was used to this. The way they shoved me into temporary corners and acted like nothing was unusual. Just before I stepped away from the table, my father said, "Anyway, glad you made it, Mary. Must have been tough traveling this time of year." This time of year? I had taken a cross-state bus for 14 hours and trekked 3 snowy blocks on foot after the taxi station closed. But sure, let's pretend that was concern. I headed upstairs, the sound of Emily and my mom still chirping downstairs. They were talking about their upcoming spring trip to the Bahamas. My dad fumbled with the TV remote, switching to the sports channel. No one noticed me leave. The living room was cold and stuffy. I pulled the thin blanket over me, staring up at the gray-white ceiling, the muffled hum of the downstairs heater rising with each steady beat. The mug sat on the table beside me, printed with that ridiculous phrase, a cruel reminder. I didn't belong here anymore. If I ever did, it was long over. I turned my back to the door. Sleep didn't come, but the anger did. I lay still on the icy folding bed in the middle of the living room, streetlight slashing faint lines across the ceiling through the curtains. In the bag beside me was the envelope. It felt heavy, not just with paperwork, but with years of being pushed aside, forgotten, and the truth I was about to lay bare in the middle of this fake family. At first I planned to wait until morning, after the waffles, after the coffee, after the tired little performance they called a warm Christmas. But as I lay there, in a room that used to store junk, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I turned over, pulled the bag closer, my fingers brushing the thick ivory envelope sealed with red wax. My heart pounded. Not with fear, but with certainty. I thought about the night I got my college acceptance letter. My dream architecture school in Boston. I ran around the room, screaming like a kid who'd just won the lottery. My mom looked up from her laptop and said, "Oh, that's nice, but do you think you could defer a year? Your sister needs help with her portfolio, and we need to focus on that." I laughed awkwardly then. I always did, laughed to swallow the lump in my throat. That year I figured out tuition on my own, took out loans, landed a partial scholarship, and juggled 3 jobs. Waiting tables at a Mexican restaurant, cleaning hotel rooms on weekends, and assisting an old professor at night who always called me Maggie by mistake. I slept 3 hours a night, ate instant noodles for every meal. I learned how to patch my own clothes and stitched my dreams together with pocket change. Meanwhile, Emily got a brand new car for her 18th birthday, a white Mazda CX-5 with suede interiors and a Bose sound system. They tied a red bow on the hood and posted a photo on Facebook with the caption, "For our little princess, may you always shine." I still have the $50 gift card they gave me that birthday, along with the note, "Hope you can get yourself something you need." I used it to print out my thesis papers. When I graduated with honors, no one showed up. I had sent the invitations a month in advance. Mom said something came up, Dad couldn't miss a meeting. Emily was backpacking through Europe. I stood alone in my cap and gown, accepted my diploma from the dean. My classmates hugged their families, posed for pictures. I took selfies. For myself. I used to think I was strong, that I didn't need them, that if I worked hard enough they'd finally see me. But then I realized. It wasn't that I wasn't seen. I was being deliberately ignored. Even when I landed a job at a respected design firm in Portland, had my own clients, received awards, they still asked, "Is that job stable?" Meanwhile, Emily dropped out of 2 majors, hopped across 3 companies, and my mom still bragged to her friends that Emily was a free-spirited artist finding her voice. I used to think I was just being sensitive, that maybe I imagined it all. But now, looking back, the pieces fit. I was always the backup plan, the shadow that made my sister shine brighter. I clenched the envelope tighter. Inside was a stack of documents. Evidence. Copies of what they did behind my back. Things I would never forgive. But the moment hadn't come. Not yet. I slipped the envelope back into the bag, zipped it slowly, like sealing away years of humiliation. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Tomorrow morning I wouldn't need to scream, I wouldn't need to cry, I would just smile, place the envelope on the table, and watch them read every line like swallowing acid. The truth would speak for me. And this time, I wouldn't step back. I never imagined that requesting a simple proof of address to file for a small business license could open up a black hole full of long-buried lies. It was a gray Wednesday afternoon in Portland. I stood waiting at the county notary office, staring blankly at the digital number board, blinking my turn. When it came, I filled out the usual information: name, social security number, current address. But when the woman behind the counter typed, and frowned, I sensed something was off. "Mary Whitmore, right? Do you still own a house in Glenview?" "Glenview? I'd never lived there." "I think your name is on the property deed. Would you like a copy?" "Yes, please." My hands shook as I took the printed page. My name, clear as day, right at the top, next to the words, legal owner. Address: 2145, Oak Ridge Lane, Glenview, Illinois. A 3-bedroom house, just about 4 blocks from my parents' home. I had never heard of it, never signed a single paper. But there it was. My name. Mary Whitmore. I left the building in a near weightless daze. The wind hit my face, and I didn't even bother to fix my scarf. I sank onto a park bench nearby, turning the page over and over, like it might disappear if I closed my eyes. Back home, I started digging. Property records, tax files, ownership transfers. Every new piece cracked something open. The house had been left by my grandfather, Charles Whitmore. In his original will, the sole heir was me, no co-owners. No conditions. But after he died, I was only told he'd left a small amount for funeral costs and some keepsakes, and then quickly ushered out of the conversation because everything's been taken care of. I was too heartbroken to question it, too naive to ask for paperwork. I still had the old email from my mother after the funeral. "Don't worry about anything, honey. It's all settled. He didn't leave much, just a few old things." Lie. I found a copy of the real will at my grandfather's former attorney's office. Luckily, he had stored everything with a law firm in Chicago, now switched over to digital archives. One call, one carefully worded explanation, and I got an email with an attachment. The original notarized will, all terms intact. When I opened it, my breath caught. I, Mary Evelyn Whitmore, was the sole heir to the Glenview house. Full ownership. Not my mother, not my father, not Emily. I remembered when Emily posted photos of an art concept shoot in an old house, saying it was a friend's place on loan. Looking closely, it was this house. The furniture, the wall color, the arched windows. Matched exactly. I checked the city tax roll. They had been renting out the house for 7 years. At about $2,400 a month. That's nearly $200,000. They collected rent under my name. They used me as a shield. I found email exchanges between my father and a real estate agency. My name appeared on the contract file. The agent's reply was simple: we were provided a notarized power of attorney. That power of attorney was never signed by me. I should have screamed, I should have lost it. But strangely I felt calm. As if my whole life had been an airless room, and someone had finally cracked open a door. They didn't just forget me. They used me. They used my name, my silence, my blind trust. To fund their life, to pay for Emily's tuition, to travel to Italy, to install a new hot tub. And me? I once ate instant noodles in a shared apartment with no heat, using an old study desk as a bed. That night, I printed everything. I organized it in order: the will, tax documents, emails, photos of the house. I placed them in a thick envelope, sealed it, and closed it with red wax. It sat on the table like a bloodstain in my cold apartment. I knew I'd bring it home for Christmas. Not to ask for money back, not to hear them apologize, but to let them know. I had woken up. And this time, I wasn't staying silent. On Christmas morning, pale sunlight spilled through the living room windows, making the house look like it was covered in a layer of fake gloss. The smell of waffles and fresh coffee filled the air. The same smell that once warmed me, now made my stomach turn. I sat quietly in the corner of the dining table, coffee cooling in my hands. Everything played out like a rehearsed scene. My mom plating eggs and bacon like a breakfast show host, my dad reading the news on his iPad, and Emily lounging with her legs up on the chair, talking about her trip to New York. So essential for my art. No one asked how I slept. No one asked what I wanted for Christmas. I was like a piece of furniture, present but completely ignored. After the dishes were cleared and Emily began round 2 of gift giving, I stood up, pulled the thick envelope from my coat pocket, walked to the coffee table, and placed it down. "This is from me," I said softly, voice flat. My mother looked up immediately, eyes narrowing like I'd just dropped a snake in the middle of the living room. "A gift? You could call it that, but I'd prefer if no one opened it right now." I turned to leave. But of course, they didn't listen. My father had already picked it up, squinting at the red wax seal like it was something written in a foreign language. He glanced at my mother. They didn't speak, but the complicity in their eyes said everything. My mother peeled off the wax, her hands trembling slightly. Emily kept slicing through wrapping paper, completely unfazed. I sat back down in my chair, arms crossed, staring straight ahead. The sound of paper sliding from the envelope was sharp, like a blade. My mother read the first page, her expression changing by the second. My father leaned in to look, then snatched the second page. I saw the exact moment they understood what was happening, like the walls around them had suddenly collapsed. "This is," my mother stammered. "A copy of Grandpa's original will," I replied. "Notarized, with a file number on record." My father took off his glasses and set them on the table. His forehead was drenched in sweat. "Mary, where did you get this?" "Public records, with a lawyer's help, and a bit of patience." Emily stopped what she was doing, finally looking up. "What will? What's going on?" I turned to her, my voice slow, like explaining to a child. "Grandpa left the house in Glenview to me. Only me, not Mom, not Dad, not you. I'm the legal heir, with full ownership. And I have all the proof." My mother placed the stack of papers down like they were burning. It's not what you think, Mary." "Really?" I let out a dry laugh. "Then why, for the past 7 years, have you been collecting rent under my name? Why did my sister use it for her art photo shoots while I didn't even know I owned the house?" My father stood up, the chair screeching behind him. "You have to understand, at the time, things were complicated. The family needed money. Emily needed tuition. Your mom was unemployed for a while. And that justifies forging my signature, taking property under my name and turning it into your personal income? I stared straight at him. If Grandpa knew what you did, he'd turn in his grave. Emily went pale. But that house paid for so many things for me. Without it, What do you think? I cut in. You were raised on my money, without knowing. Every time I ate instant noodles to pay dorm fees, you were skiing in Aspen. Staying in a cabin rented from a house under my name. My mother started crying. Tears rolled down her hands, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. Mary, we didn't think you needed it. You're independent, strong. You never asked for anything. Because you always told me there was nothing to give. And I believed you. My biggest mistake was believing there was fairness in this house. My father clenched his fists. So what do you want now? I want nothing, I replied. Just to inform you, I've reclaimed ownership. The tenants have been notified. Starting next month, the rent goes into my account. You no longer have access to that house. Silence fell like a suffocating blanket. No one spoke, no one moved. I stood up and adjusted my coat. This isn't revenge, this is truth. And for the first time in my life, I'm the one holding the cards. My mother gripped the edge of the table, her voice trembling like the air had been knocked from her chest. We're family, Mary. Those 6 words, so seemingly simple, made me feel more nauseous than anything else. Not because they were completely false, but because they were uttered like a last-ditch spell. As if the word, family, was enough to erase every sin, every manipulation, every year I was buried at the bottom. I looked her in the eyes. Cold. Clear. No, we're not family. Just people who happen to share blood. Emily's mouth fell open. My father slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing through the quiet room. You've gone too far, Mary, he shouted, face flushing red. If you walk out that door today, don't ever come back. I stood tall, my eyes never leaving his. Perfect. For the first time ever we agree on something. My mother burst into tears, louder now, with choked sobs like something tearing inside her. But I felt nothing. Not anymore. You don't understand everything, Mary. It's all more complicated than you think. We were just trying to do what was best for everyone. She stammered between sobs. No, you did what was best for Emily. And me, I was just the name on the paperwork, the legal shield, the girl who never needed anything. You didn't do it for me. You did it for your own convenience. Emily stepped forward, snapping. What do you know about sacrifice? When you left, our parents had to take on so much. I was under pressure. I didn't get to choose like you did. I laughed, dry and heavy. But you didn't get to choose? You chose everything. Your school, your major, your trips, your art studio. You were funded to dream. Me? I chose between night shifts and going hungry. Don't talk to me about not having choices when your life was built on my money. My father stepped toward me, his voice hissing through clenched teeth. If you're planning to sue your own parents, go ahead, but don't expect to come crawling back later asking for anything. I pulled a small document from my coat pocket and gently placed it on the table. It was the official notice submitted to the county, confirming the full legal reclaim of the Glenview property, notarized with a case number. I'm not suing, at least not yet. But your access to that house has been revoked. I've notified the tenants. From now on they'll deal directly with me, and all previous payments are being audited. My mother collapsed into a chair, her face drained of color. Emily backed into the sofa, all the arrogance drained from her eyes. I grabbed my coat, my car keys, walked into the hallway without looking back. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing it for the truth, for justice. Something this family has never given me. Just as my hand touched the door handle, my mother's voice came from behind, weak, desperate. You'll regret doing this, Mary. I stopped, turned my head slightly, and threw back one line. If I regret anything, it's that I let you use me for this long. And then I opened the door. stepped outside. The cold wind hit my face, but I didn't flinch. The street was eerily quiet. It felt like a thick layer of dust had been lifted from my shoulders. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. Only a steady heartbeat and a strange sense of peace rising in my chest. For the first time in my life, I walked away from that house, not as the one who endured, but as the one who decided. 3 days after I left, I got the first phone call from my father. I saw the name on the screen, Harold Whitmore, and didn't pick up. I didn't need to hear it to know what it would be, a raspy voice laced with threats wrapped in moral posturing, ending in a long tirade about how I'd torn the family apart. I hit decline. A minute later, a text came in. "Can you stop this childish game? You're putting the whole family at risk." A day later, an email from Emily landed in my inbox, subject line in all caps. "You're so selfish." I opened it and read every word like dissecting a disease I already knew the symptoms of. "You really think taking that house back is a win? You've ruined the family's financial plans." "Mine too. I didn't do anything wrong. You always act so righteous, but really you only care about yourself." At the end was one short line. "Don't ever contact me again." As if it were a curse, not the relief I had secretly longed for all these years. A week later, I heard from an old friend in Glenview, also a former neighbor of my family. She texted, "Mary, what's going on? I heard your mom's working part-time at that boutique near the square. Your dad's calling old clients, asking if anyone needs a financial advisor." I closed my phone, leaned back on my couch, and took a deep breath. My apartment wasn't big, but it was clean, quiet, and every object, every cup, every photo frame, was something I'd bought myself, arranged myself. Nothing borrowed. No one could say they gave me anything. I knew the house in Glenview was their only source of income. 3 small units, rented out for over $6,000 a month. Used to pay off credit card debt, Emily's tuition, my mother's facelift, and all those mental health retreat vacations they posted on Facebook to show off their perfect life. I didn't feel guilty. I felt right. The last time I asked my parents if they could help with tuition, just a portion, I was 20. They said, "Things are tight right now." A month later they posted a photo of Emily standing in front of a brand new SUV. And me? I walked home from my night shift with holes in my shoes. Now they call this betrayal. No one calls it what it really is, theft. I used to think I had a duty to keep the family together, to compromise, to endure in silence to avoid conflict. But the truth is, I didn't break this family. I just pulled back the rug that had been hiding their mess for years. Eventually my mother sent an email. It wasn't long, but it was full of unspoken begging. "I know things have gone too far, but do you really want to see the whole family fall apart like this? Emily still hasn't found a new job. Your father is very tired. Please, think it over." No apology, no admission. Just the kind of manipulative plea pulled out when control is slipping. But pride still matters. I didn't reply. Because for the first time in my life, I understood that my silence, too, was a choice. And a powerful one. I returned to Glenview on a cloudy Monday morning. The house at 2145 Oak Ridge Lane didn't look like the one from the legal records. It looked like a stolen memory finally returned to its rightful owner. The white paint on the walls had yellowed with age. Some of the roof tiles were chipped. Dust coated the windowsills. But it was still standing. Steady, quiet, just like me. I hired a local crew, fixed the roof, repainted the entire exterior, replaced broken windows. I, personally, picked every paint color, every kitchen cabinet handle, every new light bulb. Every detail was my choice. No interference, no resistance, no one cutting me out of the picture. I met with each tenant. At first, they were hesitant, used to dealing with a third party. But once they learned I was the new owner, and especially when I lowered the rent by $150 per unit to match the actual market rate, their attitude began to shift. An elderly woman on the ground floor gave me a box of homemade cookies, along with a handwritten note. You're the first landlord who's ever learned my name. I kept that note like a keepsake. The house slowly came back to life. The backyard was cleared of weeds, and I planted rows of lavender along the fence. Every time I walked through the front door, I felt like I was stepping into a new space, a completely different chapter. No scolding voices, no loaded questions, no one calling me the stable one who doesn't need anything. Just me, and my life. Finally in my own hands. I changed my phone number, deactivated Facebook, left the family group chat. Step by step, I untied myself from the nest that had long since rotted. My father called twice more. I didn't answer. Emily sent a 3-minute voice message, her voice choked, saying, "You made me lose everything." I deleted it after 5 seconds. My mother sent a handwritten letter, the ink smudged, maybe by tears or maybe for effect. In it, she wrote, "You've always been strong. I thought you didn't need anything. If I ever seemed cold, it was because I believed you could stand on your own." No admission, no apology, just a subtle shift of blame masked as trust. I folded the letter and tucked it in a drawer. Didn't rip it up. Didn't reply. Because I'd come to realize one thing. I didn't need apologies from people who didn't believe they'd done anything wrong. Every morning I brewed coffee in the freshly painted kitchen and sat by the window, watching sunlight slide through the curtains. I opened my laptop, closed design deals with remote clients, then strolled through the old neighborhood, now my city, not the place they raised me to control me. I started to feel light. No more anxiety every time my phone rang. No more pretending to be okay for anyone. No more needing to prove I deserved a love that was never offered. I lived, I breathed, I was at peace. And to me, that's something no expensive watch or flashy family gathering could ever buy. True freedom. It's been 3 years since that last Christmas I stepped foot in my parents' home. I still live in the house on Oak Ridge Lane. Not because I'm holding on to anger, but because it's mine, plain and simple. The house has changed. No longer a place hiding secrets behind walls and forged paperwork. It's a real home. Full of light, morning birdsong, and the scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen. I chose to live here because it's where I can fully be myself. Unerased, uncut. On the fireplace mantel is a single photo. Not a family picture, not a vacation snapshot, not a forgotten graduation portrait. Just me, standing in front of the house, holding a ring of keys, with a soft smile on my face. No one's cropped out. No one pushed aside to make space for the more successful child. The photo is a quiet but firm statement. I'm here. I matter. I exist. Sometimes, I still hear about them, through an old neighbor or a stray forwarded email. My dad retired earlier than planned after financial instability. My mom still works at the boutique, now stationed at the perfume counter. Emily once moved to New York but couldn't make it. Now she teaches part-time art classes at a small community center in Iowa. None of them reached out again. And I'm not waiting. I no longer wake up with a knot in my throat. No longer flinch at a familiar name flashing on my phone screen. No longer spend hours composing imaginary scripts for a conversation that will never happen. I no longer need them to change or apologize or admit fault, because now I know. Some people will never look in the mirror, especially when the reflection shows what they don't want to see. Instead of waiting for them to acknowledge my worth, I give that acknowledgement to myself. Every day I walk into my home, closing the door behind me, I feel safe. Not the fake safety of polite small talk, but a deep calm that comes from no longer needing permission just to exist. I used to think revenge would bring me peace. That if I exposed everything, laid all the truth bare, made them suffer, I would feel healed. But then I realized, healing doesn't come from hurting others. It comes from no longer letting them control your emotions. I tend to the flower garden in the backyard, read books on quiet sunny afternoons, and sometimes walk the neighbor's dog because her elderly owner needs help. I live slowly, but not aimlessly. I stand firm, every step, every choice is mine. If someone were to ask me, "Do you still resent them?" I would smile and shake my head. Because I'd learned the most valuable lesson my youth ever paid for. Freedom doesn't come from forgiveness, it comes from letting go. I've let go, and in that moment of release, I reclaimed everything they once tried to take from me. My name, Mary Evelyn Whitmore, is now tied to a place where no one can erase me. Mary's story is a clear reminder that sometimes, the deepest pain doesn't come from being forgotten, but from being deliberately erased by those we once called family. But from that betrayal, Mary rose. She took back control of her life, not through rage or revenge, but through clarity and self-determination. She no longer seeks validation from others because she has given it to herself. And that is the greatest lesson of all. True freedom begins the moment you stop asking permission to exist. What do you think about Mary's journey? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more honest and powerful stories about life, family, and the choices that shape us.